Wireless devices explode across Lebanon after Israel warns Hezbollah. And this is a curious one. You can see this guy is being carted off. There's footage all over X right now of people standing in grocery lines and stuff exploding. And here's one I think we can share that is not too bad, but you can see here's what it looks like. And so this guy's standing right here, and there's a pager. There's some sort of explosive here, right here, that goes off. And we'll just take a quick look at this. You can see there's no gore or anything. Looks like it's just in his bag. And so the pager just explodes in the bag, and he's just laying there going, what the heck just happened? And everybody else runs away. All right. So he's seated there. And this was happening all over the place. Now, this guy doesn't look like he was too badly injured, but others were. Okay. Others pulled out the pager. They were looking at it. It exploded, might have exploded in their face. People's legs are blown off. This looks like it was in his bag, and so it blew outward. So it looked, I'm sure he's going to be fine. But many others, a very similar situation to this happened. There were thousands of these things apparently that popped off. So here's the latest from the Times. They say that large numbers of wireless devices simultaneously exploded. There was a coordinated attack, hundreds of injuries, said Lebanese health officials, a day after Israeli leaders warned that they were going to step up their military campaign. Now, Hezbollah said that the pagers belonging to its members had exploded. The cause was still being investigated. Don't really know what happened. And again, there's a question about whether it's the batteries. Was this, in other words, was this a technology hack and attack, or was this a supply chain hack and attack? Remember, it reminds me of what we saw with the Iranian centrifuges. Remember, those were all spinning, all weird and wonky and stuff. And we think that was a supply chain problem, like they got bad chips. In the process of creating the centrifuges, they needed to go get supplies, and they got bad supplies. Did that happen here? Did they switch from cell phones to pagers? And did they go to Mossad Technology R Us and buy a bunch of pagers there? Those looks good. And they're filled with C4? Or explosives? Or was it just the battery? Which one was it? And if you look around, I think it's more than just a battery. I'm not a technological expert, but what we saw there with that explosion, I don't think it's a battery. We've seen other batteries that have exploded, right? You see those, and they go bad for sure. You get a cell phone that you've seen, somebody drops I've seen videos, right? Somebody drops a weight. They're at the gym. They put their cell phone down. They're lifting. They drop a weight. Boom, and it explodes, but it's a slow explosion. It's like it fizzes. Oh, crap. And then you get out of the run away, and then it turns into the smoldering cauldron. But it's not exactly an explosive effect, unless maybe you overheat it or there's some sort of technological, solution in there. But I think with a pager nowadays, you could probably fit the electronics into like a dime, like the size of a dime coin, and then fill the rest up with C4. And you're like, yeah, this pager works great. It's just an LCD screen, a little Raspberry Pi chip in there with some very small electronics. You fill the rest of the thing with some explosive. And that's, I think, a more effective tool. But I'm sure we'll figure out more. 3 officials briefed on the attack said it had targeted hundreds of pagers belonging to Hezbollah operatives who've used the devices for years. Now, the devices were programmed to beep for several seconds, beep, beep, before exploding. What the heck's going on with this? Look at it. Is this thing working? And boom. Then it exploded. Lebanon's health ministry said in a statement that many people had arrived at Lebanese hospitals after being wounded when their devices exploded. The ministry warned citizens to stay away from those devices. Now, the Lebanese Red Cross said that dozens of ambulances were responding to, quote, multiple bombings in southern and eastern Lebanon, as well as Beirut, the capital. And Lebanon's Internal Security Directorate asked people to steer clear of the roads. The blasts appear to be the latest salvo in an 11-month conflict between Israel and Hezbollah after Hezbollah began firing into Israel. Now, here's a look at, they say, what this could mean. For months, concerns have grown that the war in Gaza might ignite a second conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. The two sides have repeatedly traded strikes. Hostilities have also forced more than 150,000 people on both sides to leave their homes. So here's what the Lebanon health minister said. Dr. Faras Abiyad said in a news conference that 8 people were killed by exploding devices and 27 2,700 people were wounded and 200 in serious condition. That is a lot of people. 2,700 wounded? Whoa. Via pagers? Just sending a text message? Dr. Abiad said many of the victims had injuries to their faces, particularly the eyes, right? So they're looking, what are they beeping me for right now? Boom, it explodes. As well as to their hands and stomachs. One of those killed was an 8-year-old girl. Now, electronic pager devices also exploded in Syria. An outlet affiliated with the Revolutionary Guards reported that 7 people were killed in Syria. Wow, it's like multiple different locations from blasts targeting their devices. Graphic amateur footage from inside the hospitals was broadcast showing wounded patients, mangled hands, burned injuries to their lower bodies. Ambulance sirens continue to blare in Beirut. And the video footage, which we won't share here because it's a little graphic, but it's madness. Hezbollah confirmed in a statement that pagers belonging to its members had exploded. Cause still being investigated. A child was killed, 3 people dead, more are going to come. Now, they didn't assign blame to anybody. Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, Mojtaba Amani, was one of the hundreds of people injured. Iran's ambassador to Lebanon. Wow, so an official government person. Injured in a wave of blasts, said the news agency. Iranian media said the ambassador was using one of the pagers apparently used in the attack, and 2 of the bodyguards were also injured, right? That's not a battery bomb, right? One pager this size goes off and it like takes out 3 people. That's like a device. A post from Iran's embassy were not serious. Surveillance footage, the one we just played here, shows a small explosion going off in a man's bag, and that's the one we just saw. So that one exploded, and then the bag explodes outward and I think contained most of the blast. Residents of Beirut's southern suburbs, where many of the explosions took place, saw smoke coming from people's pockets. Mohammed Awada, 52, was driving alongside one of the victims. My son went crazy and started to scream when he saw a man's hand flying away from him. Hand explodes. Now, here's a look at some of the events in the Middle East. There's a lot of them. The Israeli military has not issued a new defensive guideline for this. Lebanon's health minister also said that hundreds of people have been injured. We're trying to absorb all the casualties, and they're appealing for blood donations. Yesterday, Israeli defense minister said that military action in Lebanon would be the only way to restore calm to northern Israel. I wonder if this is going to. You think this is going to solve the problem? I guess. I don't know. Hopefully, this solves the conflict over there, and there's no more fighting. That'd be good. More than 100,000 people on either side have been displaced, and tensions are continuing to rise. So things are very spicy over there.